Today's podcast is with one of the leading voices here in Canadian soccer, in Jordan Wilson. From being a professional player to the commentary desk, Jordan will talk about his career and also the current state of the Canadian men's national team. You're going to want to check this out.
So, Jordan, you have been a podcast guest that I've been wanting to have on here for quite some time. Not only, like I said, you're the voice, I feel like, of Canadian soccer in general here. You do such great coverage of the CPL
Thank you.
and just the game in
Appreciate it.
general. And I really want to get your background just on your playing experience. I mean, you've all gone across and done it across Europe, and you also played in the CPL. Like, not a lot of people can say that, honestly. And I want to go through your journey and just talk about the game, and then we'll also talk about where Canadian soccer is going to head up here, especially with the World Cup coming up here. So, Jordan, I have to say, going through your youth here, what brought you to the game of soccer? Was it like family?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, it was family. My dad's he grew up in England, also sometime in Jamaica as well, but he had obviously affinity for the game. And my older brother, 5 years older than me, played at the time when I was growing up. So yeah, at 3, about to turn 4 that summer, I'll never forget. I just fell in love with the game and just never looked back since then. But my dad is probably the first one to put the ball at my feet. And then it just became an instant love as soon as I got on the pitch.
Okay, two-part question with that. Who's better, you or your brother?
My brother would say me, and I would say me as well. My brother's taller than me, and I would say at the time probably jumped higher. I was a bit more athletic. Um, so there are areas in his game that are very good, but I just think I'm probably more well-rounded. Like I could play in the midfield, I can play in the back, and it's probably just has everything to do with the time that I put into it. Like I knew that soccer was the thing I wanted to do. And my brother was good at basketball, he was good at volleyball, he was good at soccer as well. So he's a bit more an all-around athlete, but I'm just probably better at the facets of the game in soccer. But he's still really good.
Ah, well, hey, that's an honest take there. I know I've had some other guests here. They always say that there's always a heated rivalry between siblings. So I was really curious to see how that was kind of growing up there.
Not with us, to be honest. My brother, shout out to my big bro, because he just always pushed me. He bought me the boots, brought me to training. He always said, like, yeah, my brother's going to be better than me, and just kind of embraced that. And he was never selfish. He always just paved the way. So I appreciate him.
I love that. I love that. Now, I do have to ask. I mean, you said your dad's from England. Was that an Arsenal household growing up?
No, not at all. My brother supports United. My dad's from Birmingham. I'm just an Arsenal boy just because of how they stole my heart as a youth, like with their great football, with the players that they attracted, everything about it. It's been a long journey. It's been a long, I would say 30 years of being an Arsenal supporter, but yeah, that's my team. I'm gonna till I die.
Oh, love that. Now I have to ask, when you first got into soccer here and you're going to pick your positions, I know midfield is don't get me wrong, is one of the hardest positions I think on the pitch. But
Yeah.
did you originally start out there, or because I see an Henri poster in the back? So did you start on the front, then work your way back?
No. I mean, I guess everyone did at it as a youth, right? Like you score goals, but I think U9 actually ended up playing right back. As everyone wants to be a midfielder, striker. I think my coach at the time was like, we have guys scoring goals, or maybe I'm not good enough going forward, that he's putting me as a defender. Then I kind of went from defender to, I would say, sweeper. And it was actually probably around U15 where my coach at the time, Carl Fletcher, was like, you know what you do in the back, you can just basically do as a defensive midfielder. And I just was winning duels, making sure I won the ball, played it forward. And then I started to dabble a little bit, right? Also with high school soccer, I played midfield and sometimes play in the back. So it just depends on the day. It depends on what the coach wants. But I'm so grateful that from a young age I learned how to defend, because that has just been the consistent thread throughout my career, right? Like someone who is able to win the ball back, someone who could defend and play in different spots. So it's always got me a spot on the field.
Absolutely. And you know what? I had to say this because I'm a goalkeeper myself. Any experience playing goalkeeper at all?
No, not at all. I'm not crazy enough to play that spot.
Yeah, us goalkeepers are pretty crazy. So I always just have to ask just in case. But you know what? I really like how you had that experience kind of basically a lot around the pitch, especially on the defensive side, because again, when you act as like that sweeper or even that holding mid who can get the ball back and distribute to your teammates, you can really help orchestrate the attack going forward and also help break down other defenses. So I feel like that does teach you quite a bit of things, and getting that versatility there is just something that's, I feel like it's paramount for any player, especially in my opinion.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. It's a astute point as well. I love it. I love the way that I grew up and just the balance that I had. Certain teams I played a certain role and it fluctuated from time to time. So I was grateful for that.
Now, Jordan, I have to ask because again, like speaking for myself here, Canadian soccer in a whole has developed a lot over the last, especially like 5, 10 years. And
Yeah.
I believe we're around the same age group here, but not a lot of the same opportunities like the players nowadays have. I mean, you growing up through the youth system there, you were saying you were in high school, and I know that you got a big opportunity to go play in the U.S. and university. Can you just kind
Yeah.
of take me through that journey and like again, how did you kind of go about that getting a scholarship to play in the States?
I was fortunate enough to play for Aaron Mills growing up, and they had a program dedicated for young high schoolers, club football, trying to go and play at the next level. And the next level at that time in 2007, 8, 9 was to go play university ball in the States, right? Get a scholarship, end up playing for more serious football, as you could say, before you went and played pro. So that's kind of what happened was I made a decision. My brother at the time was playing for Aaron Mills, and I grew up playing for North Mississauga, a really competitive team, but ended up making a move to Aaron Mills at 14, right when I started high school. And that gave me the base for the next 4 years of certain trips and just making sure my academics were decent enough to travel or to get to play on a team. So that time was just so imperative and so needed for my career to go and just to grow and grow up. So it was a small school, it was an NAI school in Grand Rapids, Michigan, only 5 hours away from Mississauga here in Ontario. But I had a great coach in Mark Bell and Steve Herdsman. Steve Herdsman played in the MLS, but he was just a freak of an athlete, a real savant of the game, and he just kind of and he played my position, right? He's a defender, he's a midfielder. So he just taught me um the basics and just the repetitive, like pinging a ball. I remember just pinging balls like for days, right? Just 40 yarders, 50 yarders. A lot of my game, a lot of what made me who I was like tuned up there. So yeah, I think that time though, when I left high school, 17 to about 21, 22, it just allowed me to mature, get a little man weight, like understand the game a little bit more. And then through that, yeah, through that training and program, it just kind of prepared me for what was next.
Hey, and that's something that again helps speaker to development, help take you in your next stage, right? Now, the one question I have here, because we again have a lot of youth talent here coming up through the ranks. I'm also super excited just for Canadian soccer in general, because again, talent
Yeah.
is plentiful here. Now, for those youth prospects or youth players coming up through even high school and looking maybe to get some university experience, do you have like any advice or any maybe ways they should look at when trying to get connected with universities?
It's tough because I think it's changed a lot over the last 10, 15 years. I think what will always remain the same is like how much work you put in. So a lot of people are like, "Oh, what school should I do, or should I go and play pro at 17?" I'm like, "Go where you can play and develop, and at a decent rate." So I look at even my college or university career. There were good teams that we were playing against, but it was just a repetition. Like the fact that I got 2 a days, 3 a days, the fact that like I was at a smaller school, but I got to just work on my game a lot, be with the coach, really just understand it. So I would say to people, being a big fish in a small pond is pretty. It worked out for me. It's favorable, but it's more about my reps. Like I wasn't the best player in the world growing up, or even in university rankings. I was good, but it's just about the time I got to do it, right? So I think a lot of kids sometimes you see comparison could be the thief of joy. Like you see other people making moves or playing pro, so you feel like, okay, that's what I have to do. But late bloomers end up being successful footballers, just going and making sure that you put in the grind and put in that work, and then you don't know when your moment's gonna come. So that was my testament. That was my story a little bit. So I try to just share that whenever I can, or to whoever is listening, is that it's really just about the hours that you put in, and what they say, 10,000 hours, like exceed that, and you'll just have a lot of confidence to what you want to do moving forward. So that's my advice about school, about playing, is just about getting your reps in and making sure you do it at the highest level you can.
I know it really sounds cliche, but practice makes perfect, right? And
Yeah.
it's like a muscle. Those touches on the ball, pinging the ball. Like honestly, if there was an ASMR for just pinging balls, soccer balls, I would listen to that all day long. It's such a great sound.
Yeah.
But I think that's one thing too that maybe again sometimes I think sometimes the not only the professional players, but also the youth players maybe sometimes forget about, right? Like, again, sometimes if you don't practice the fundamentals, you can get off track, and then they maybe wonder why their performance is maybe not as good as it once was. And it's like, always go back to your basics, try and build up from there, and then go and then help expand upon your game. So I think that's one really key thing you mentioned there. I really like that, is just making sure you have your fundamentals down and repetition, because repetition will help, not only help you on the pitch, but just help you just in terms of just muscle memory and things like that. So great.
Yeah, I think quickly before we move on too, I think understanding what you need to do in the spot that you play. So I'm not gonna get too caught up in that players are like, oh, I only play attacking midfield. I'm like, okay, well, there might be a role you have to play for a team, or you're left mid, or you're central mid, or the whole like. But I think whatever role you do, whether you're a defender, a midfielder, or striker, is just really focus on those things. So making sure your X factor, whatever makes you great, is as great as it could possibly be, and that's present every time. And then what's weak in your game, you work on. I think that was really helpful in my career, meaning that I knew I wasn't going to be a guy that was ever going to put up numbers and score goals every game. I just wasn't built that way. I was more of a ball winner. I was someone that was going to defend well. I was going to be a working bee. I was going to be in the right spots. I was going to win duels and corners and headers and all of that, right? So be the best at that, and then develop in areas that I need to work on, like being smarter in tighter spaces, right? Making sure I always retain the ball for my team after I won it, I made the right decision. So these are all things that you work on, but you make sure that your glass is full, or as full as it can be, with what you need to do in the position that you play. So, a lot of kids now is like, you look at people on TV that are doing tricks that you would never use in a game, right? Might as well work on your two-touch and how decisive you are in the moments where you play. So that's for me is a big thing. Is like making sure you're the best at what you need to be for the position that you play.
Absolutely. And again, it comes back to, because again, soccer is a team sport, right? And again, you have to be able to play your role and help play your spot and get your team successful. And I feel like sometimes there can be some of that, some players forget about that, and sometimes egos can come into play, but you're absolutely right. I think that's when you see the most successful teams. Like, I'm just even thinking, like, look at PSG last season, right? Like, look at how, they were able to come as a cohesiveness as a team, and each player played their role, and look, they ended up winning the Champions League for the first time. And you know what? That's something that I think really hits home there, and that's a really good point that you pointed out there. Now, okay, so, you moved from Canada, now you're going to a whole new country in the U.S. So I always have to ask, because again, when I was talking to Desiree Scott earlier, she says she was a homebody, so not exactly the easiest to leave home, to go to a new place, not really familiar with. Can you just talk about, how did you find the adaptation to living into a new country and city?
I'm a little bit different than Des, that legend. I'm a wanderlust. Like, I don't mind traveling. I don't mind experiencing something new. I think the fact that I was a kid, I was 17 turning 18 when I went to uni, there's just a learning curve of being a man. Like, not so much, okay, you gotta do laundry on your own. It's just big decisions. If you don't need to get up, if you don't want to get up and wake up for that class, you don't. There's no parent telling you need to. There's no one checking over your shoulder. You kind of govern your own existence and what needs to happen. So I think that was a learning curve for me. But like, I'm grateful because I rounded out pretty quickly. Like, I made decisions. They weren't always great, but they were. I didn't go so far that I flunked out, or I didn't end up playing the next season or whatever it might be. But that's the hardest part. It was balancing all of that, balancing when to have fun, balancing training, balancing school. And I think school for me was always easy in season because it just felt like you were playing footy all the time. You traveled every weekend, you had games within the week, you trained every day. So school was fine in those months. It was when it was cold, those Lake Michigan winters, and like you couldn't really play and you had to make sure that you're doing work. Those were tough. Like January to April was tough because you're just focusing on school, making sure your grades were good enough so you could play the next season. But when you came to school in August, that was the best. Those are the best times of my life, truthfully.
Oh yeah, and even when I look back at university, it's like one of my best times that I've played. I mean, I played some university ball as well, and just going to training, being able to be a part of a team like that, it was honestly, I wish sometimes I can go back and relive those moments. So
Yeah. Where'd you go to university?
University of Winnipeg.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, so one of my goalkeeper coaches, Pedro Darza, he brought me to the team there. Unfortunately, it was with the practice squad in the first season. It actually disbanded. So
Okay.
unfortunately, but I ended up going to play with CMU, so Christian Minute University here. So I ended up having a couple appearances there and making get to live some of that dream there when I was with them.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's good.
Um. So in my experience, okay, when I've been looking at your researching you here, Jordan, you were there for 4 years, right? 2009 to 2013 in university?
Yeah, I did. Like, I played a fifth year because I redshirted um my senior year due to injury. But yeah, so I'd say 4.5 is what I technically say to people.
Okay, let me guess your major. I want to see if I can guess it. Let's see.
Possible.
Impossible. Uh,
Possible.
is it kinesiology?
No, not a chance. I'm like such a writing buff and a nerd. And I want to be a teacher, so I got an English major. I got a humanities creative writing major.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, so no one could ever guess that. Which kind of like plays into the punditry role a little bit in
Mhm.
terms of, yeah, I'm not doing a lot of writing, but in terms of an affinity for words and how things sound and how things are, definitely this plays a little bit into that. So
It's the creativity part, right?
yeah, definitely. Which I always love. But yeah, I wanted to be. I went to school basically saying that I want to be a teacher, but let me just get my bachelor's and then hopefully go to teachers college or faculty here. And then once I got that degree, I was on the plane trying to play pro in Europe. So that's how that story kind of went.
So just before we talk about going pro and getting those tribulations going over to Europe, this one last thing here about college. What was your favorite moment from your time playing with Cornerstone Golden Eagles?
Oof. There was a lot. There were many. I think I was very fortunate that when I came in as a freshman, I think you had like over a dozen freshmen coming in, but we were like the next batch that could potentially win titles for the university and for that coach. Our coaches were legends. Like that same coaching staff coached my brother, who's 5 years older than me. And he had also a group of Canadians that went down and were very successful at that time. So I would say winning like the conference, I would say, even though I wasn't part of that team because I was injured, getting to basically the game right before nationals, and even though we lost in penalties, it's just like those moments, I still remember like the feeling. So yeah, was that the highlight because we lost? No, but I just think growing up with those guys was amazing. When you spend 4 years as men, young men, I guess, you're just bonded together for life in a different way. So that was yeah, that was probably, yeah, that was a really good time. I just think grinding and really learning your craft and also maturing together was a good time.
Oh, I love to hear that. And, that's something that you could definitely take away going into professional experience here. And again, I really want to touch home on this because, again, you finish your university career. Now you make that decision. Okay, I could maybe become a teacher. That's, kind of in the mind. But then you're like, I want to go pro. I want to pursue this career. Now, when looking at here, I mean, you went over to Europe. Like, can you just talk about, like, how did you, because for a lot of these players here, it's hard to get those opportunities. Like, how did you find to get those trials over in Europe and just in general?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to get into. I guess I'm saving it for a few chapters for a book one day. I would say because it's very there's a lot of details that go into it, but I think how I sum it all up is just like I was a good player. Maybe you could say we're great in certain areas, but I think my biggest um, X factor was the fact that I was relentless. Like I heard no so many times, but I just barely lost enthusiasm. I just went to the next thing. So for me, it wasn't really so much connections. I had an English passport. That will always help. That's something that I throw into the story because it allowed me to figure things out in Europe without having an expiry date. And so I had family over there, which helped. That gave me some shelter for a little bit while I figured things out. But those things kind of die after a moment, right? Like you have to be making money or making some progress. So the best way I could sum it up is that right when I retired, I went to England to live with family, um, and just try to figure it out. And I was probably playing like 13th division football, and getting 30 pounds a week, which is literally that's nothing. I think you could use that in literally 8 hours over there. It's nothing. But I was just trying to get things situated and I played on a travel team with Chicago Bridges. every summer, nearly 3 summers out of the time when I was in uni. And we used to travel all the time to Scandinavia, Germany. We played certain teams and in the Netherlands. So I kind of knew that I could maybe play in that world. I could maybe play in Europe just because we were playing these teams in summer over the break, and there are academies and certain places that seemed interested at the time, but I just kept going back to school. So I kind of just landed up in Denmark, and it seems like maybe if you look at Wikipedia that I had like all these trials, but this was just like people I reached out to or agents that I had at the time. I'm saying I'm here, like I'm gonna show up here tomorrow. And there were a lot of no's, but I just kind of just went from club to club and didn't really lose enthusiasm. And then when I got my opportunity, I said, look, I don't want to stay here forever, but I'm going to make sure that I make this the best situation possible. And I think to make a long story short, um, a coach went to go see another player on my team, and I ended up like standing out on the day, and then brought me into trial when that season was over. And now I just never looked back. Then I ended up staying at that club for 5 years before I came home.
That's again, sometimes it just could be coincidence, right? You sometimes you get coaches or scouts go to games and they're not even going to see you, but then you stand out on the day and then look, a door opens, a whole opportunity, and then there you go. And
Yeah, I think just like not giving up is the biggest thing. There are probably 5 or 6 clubs that I went to in some capacity before I finally signed and was able to be like, I'm a professional. This is what I make. Like this is not um like black money. This isn't under the table. I'm getting paid. This is like something that's official. But that happened 9 months into me grinding, right? So I find it funny now when people are like, okay, well, I went to a club and they didn't like me and I'm back home. And I scoff and I laugh because I'm like, okay, so like if you can, what's plan B, C, D? Like get in and try your best and see what else you can make from that. So that's my story. That's not everyone's story, but my story was that like I heard a bunch of no's and I just wasn't phased. Of course it like you doubt, right? That's a part of it. Like, ooh, am I good enough? Should I be here? Is this the right time? There's all these things, but it was easier to come back home and work than it was to play over there. But then at a point, it got to a point in my career where I was so happy I made that leap because I was living out the pro life. I was getting paid. I loved what I did. Then all of a sudden you look and you played over 150 games in Europe and you're like, okay, well, this was just a guy that was begging to be at training 4 or 5 years ago. So it's always worth it, but it's just how much a person's willing to take.
that's another thing too. Like I've talked with other pro players, with Raf O'Heen and Tyson Farrago, and they always said like one of the hardest parts they had, especially when trying to play in Europe, is just getting your foot in the door, right? Like again, there's been times where teams will say like, hey, yeah, we really like you, and we'll get you signed up, and then lo and behold, it doesn't go through, maybe due to paperwork or things like that. But again, especially when I was talking with Raf O'Heen, like learning his story and not being able to does not give up in general, right? Like he bounced from club to clubs in Germany, even in the Philippines there, and came over here to Canada. It's one of those things that I think a lot of players, if they had aspirations to go pro, you have to be able to take those chances and be able to not give up on your dream, right? I think that's the one
Yeah.
big thing about from your story. I mean, obviously having an England passport does help out a little bit for sure over there. It's because of the immigration documents and things like that, but especially for some individuals, being told no over and over and over can be hard for them to keep motivated. So I think it really
No,
speaks to your
definitely.
mentality.
Definitely. Yeah, it's not easy hearing no, and I would be lying if I said it doesn't phase you at all. But if you really want to do something, it doesn't phase you to the point that you give up. That's basically my point, is that you find a way to make it happen.
Okay, and I'm really curious to know here, Jordan. So you go from North American soccer and you go play football in Europe.
Yeah.
What was the big differences? Like, I mean, there has to be a different style of play going from North America over to
Yeah.
Europe.
I will always be grateful, and it was a blessing and a curse in a way playing in Denmark. Denmark was so tactical, meaning everyone knew how they wanted to play. Every team had their own identity, and it was very almost like pretty football. If you've seen any of my highlights or if you know me at all, like I was just very rugged. Of course, could still pass a ball and pick out a pass, but I love the contact. I love a tackle. I played many games with yellow cards. We've gotten a few reds, and they were never for um, punching or fighting. They're all from tackles. Like some were clean and some are missed time. But I think going into Denmark, it was very much structured, and I love it now because it helps me in the analyst punditry role. Like I just can't help but turn off that part of my brain now. But when I first went there, it was why are we spending 45 minutes talking about what this other team likes to do before training when we could just go out and train and work on what we do. But that was the biggest adjustment outside of obviously learning a new language and trying to figure out people's culture and how they go about business and their lives. Um, yeah, that was the biggest thing. That was the biggest difference. And I think growing up here, Canadians, we're athletic. Like we're very much faster, stronger, taller, bigger, like all of that. I mean, there's some Vikings that are probably disagreeing with that bigger comment, but what I mean is we play football fast. Um, but the Danish, they were methodical. They took their time. Everything had a purpose. So it's just learning when to slow things down, when to speed it up. But I just felt like that's a part of the game as you mature as well. It's like you don't go 100 miles per hour all the time. You pick your moments when you go, and you make sure that you make things happen when you do.
It's actually really funny that you say that. So, Real Madrid had a youth camp, like an ID camp here in Winnipeg, and the coach that was with us there, he was saying that the one big thing he notices here is that we have great athletes. So that was one big thing that he kind of mentioned here, and they actually brought some kids from Winnipeg over to Madrid, to the Real Madrid Academy, and they said that if they can get them, they feel like they have the intangibles there, like the physical traits. Now they said they got to work on the technique and a little bit more of the more tactical side of football, and especially at the young age there. So it's really kind of interesting. He kind of tied the two because again, this coach, Danny, he coached, Ashraf Hakimi, Asensio, all the major players, and he was saying this to me on the day. So it's really kind of hopeful to see about how we can develop these athletes into good soccer players.
No, and I think I don't want to have a full conversation about Jesse Marsh and the Canadian men's national team, but you can see for both the men and the women, it's like definitely grow up a little bit more superior than other nations in terms of the physicality aspect of the game. But figuring out what Canadian identity is on the ball is a different thing. And I think something that we have to think about as we move forward if we're really trying to build a soccer identity in Canada is, okay, what are Canadians known for outside of being as fast as Alphonso Davies or as tall as Promise David and I think we're getting away from that in some degree, but that has to do with how we coach our kids and what kids are aspiring to be. But that's a whole different conversation and a longer podcast. But that's where we are, and I think that's what it is even in Europe. Like, you know how many times I heard that? I didn't meet many players that tackled harder than me ever, but I had to learn how to fit into a system and play a role, and that role changed from time to time. But thankfully, I had the brain and the drive to like figure that out. But imagine if I knew that before I went over there. Yeah, who's to say how far I could have gone, right? In that aspect. I'm happy for my career. I feel very grateful and blessed. But I just think about making it easier and better for the next generation. It's like if we had an identity that created footballers with footballer brains, there's no stopping Canadian talent.
Well, especially too. I mean, you're seeing a lot more Canadian talent now go play over in Europe. Like Jonathan David's playing for my home, like my favorite club, in Juventus. You also got Kone playing for Sassuolo. You also have Alphonso Davies playing with Bayern. Like, and many more great athletes there. And I think eventually, like, it's still developing here, right? And I feel like we never really, again, the game's been growing here so fast over the last 10 years, especially, that it's only going to go from here. Now I have to ask you, okay, I've been wanting to ask you since you've been on this podcast, with that Danish team that you played for, how do you pronounce the name? Because I'm looking at it. Nico Bain?
Yeah, it's hard. Nuko Bing.
Nuko Bain. Okay. Well, shout out to Nuko Bain.
Bing, yeah.
So again, you made a lot of appearances for them. I'm seeing, again, you said over 150 games in Europe there, but for Nico Bain, who is the rival of that team? Like, is it like Copenhagen? Like, who's the derby match there?
So Copenhagen played in the top league. They played in the Super League. And Nykøbing at the time when I played was in first division, the league right below. So technically second tier. I would say rivals is just like kind of by area. Nykøbing's probably an hour and a half outside of Copenhagen. It's actually probably almost closer to Hamburg than it is to Copenhagen. I think if you take the ferry, it's about the same distance. So it's really south in Denmark. So just sitting on top of Germany. But I would say Nashville, because that club is only probably 30, 40 minutes away. And they just had like a rich history of going against each other. But yeah, what I loved about Denmark was just how small it was. So 5 million people, 12 teams in the first division, 12 teams in the Superliga. Like when you played the Pokal, when you had the cup games, you're getting like big draws, you're getting decent teams. And then what, like 2, 3 teams every year would come down from the Superliga and play in the first division, right? So when I think about sometimes even now, like players that are coming over to the MLS or players that are making moves in Europe, and I had the pleasure of playing against them or like marking them, or so it's like it's just so funny how um I ended up playing in a spot that was so concentrated, like it was very like focused on certain talent and players. Yeah, like players like I look at Dorgu right now, like I knew that's playing for like Man United.
Yeah.
And yeah, like the club that he grew up playing with, I trialed for. Like it was a first division club that used to be a really big Superliga club, but was playing in the first division, and I knew that club very well and intimately. So it's just funny how things work like that.
Small world, isn't it?
Yeah, football really is. Even like Jesper Sørensen for Vancouver Whitecaps, like I probably played 6 games against him at the time, and he was just a manager in the first division for a good team, Fredericia, that played very pretty football. But I'd never think I would see him or talk about him ever again until he came to the Whitecaps. And even his number two, Jan Mikkelsen, was my defensive coach my last 2 years before I came back home. So it's just it's funny how small the football world is.
So you've been there for 5 years. You have over 100 appearances for the club. In 2019, 2020, what prompted you to leave the club?
Just felt like time. There's a couple contributing factors. I feel like COVID hit and it kind of threw things up in the air for everyone, but particularly for me. Like my grandma's health at the time, I was like, do I really want to be away? I felt 28. Do I want to always be a guy that's traveling? And it just felt like a crossroads for me. I was like, if I could get a decent club at home and I can get a decent wage, and I feel like this is the next step in my career, it might feel like time to come home and play. So I always tell this story, like if I didn't sort out something with Forge or York United at the time, then I was probably going on the road again. Because I know what Europe was like. And once you start doing it, then you know that you can move to like another club or play at another situation or another team, right? So, um, but yeah, I ended up signing for York and I was elated. But I remember signing in October and I didn't officially play for the club until July just because of all the COVID madness. So, um, yeah, and then my first game was actually in your city, right, where the bubble was, or the second bubble, um, to start the season when there was 8 games or like 32 days in Winnipeg. But yeah, so that's kind of what happened. Just felt like the right time for me to come back home, and I'm glad I made that decision because yeah, it was nice to cap off my career in the country that raised me.
Oh, and you know what? I'm really glad you're able to find an opportunity back home and kind of in your own backyard. And again, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm happy that CPL is here. It's just, I feel like it took way too long. I feel like this should have been a league here. It should have been here for a longer time because I didn't have this growing up, and we didn't have it growing up, right? I mean, we had the MLS. Don't get me wrong, but again, we didn't actually have like that Canadian Premier League here, and that's one thing too that you got to really appreciate nowadays what we have, but. I really just want to I just want to really get to know there. So I see the kit behind you. Now you
Yeah.
get to put on the York United kit for the first time. Can you just kind of take me through that emotion there and playing for a club in your own country? Was there any different emotions than playing over in Europe for you personally?
Yeah, I think in Europe, what the biggest thing was, it was just like me against the world because I was over there by myself. And yeah, I mean, my parents I think my sister was at a game, like they saw me play online a bunch of time or on TV, but like actually having your blood in the stands, that wasn't the case. But then I came back home and all of a sudden every game's televised and like you can watch on OneSoccer and there's interviews and I could hear my dad or sister or mom in the stands. It made things real for me. My wife now, but girlfriend at the time, that could watch every single game. I wasn't at every single one, but watched all 50 odd games that I played for York United. And that was crazy for me because that type of support and love just didn't happen, right? So now at dinner, I'm talking about referee calls or who needs to play better, what I got to do for my team. I never had that same scouting report that I did over there, right? There's just things I had to figure out on my own. And I had a lot of support in Denmark. I'm really grateful for the people that I met there and the people that sustained me and I called family. But it's just different when it's your blood, right? It's different when you're actually at home. So it just felt like a coming home party. Like I was home, my dad was at games, my dad could go to Forge as well in Hamilton and like invite his friends. Like that's how we got a lot of times, hey, I want tickets to this game, and he was just meeting like old buddies, and they would go and watch, and that was like pressure to make sure I played well and kind of did the old man proud. So yeah, it was just that part I loved. I loved that I got to come home and cap my career here.
You spent 2 seasons with York United, correct?
I did, yeah. 2021, 2022.
Now,
All good times.
this before we kind of talk about maybe your transition to punditry and being a broadcaster with OneSoccer. What, like, again, I know you talked about your dad, but any specific moments that you kind of remember fondly from your time at York United on the pitch that you can think of?
Just some goals, right? I barely scored, but like a lot of them were like little headers or tap-ins or whatever it might be, but they felt as the time like important goals. Whether it was like a tying goal or it's just that I was at home as well. So to be able to celebrate in front of people that I knew and the people that raised me and got me to this point, that was really special. But I honestly love my time in the Canadian Premier League. I love everything about this league. The fact that you get to travel this big country, like you could be in Halifax one week and then you could be in Vancouver Island and Pacific the next. Like it's a real blessing. I've never seen Canada like this. Like I've been on the East Coast a bit, Quebec. My nationals when I was 14 was in Moncton, New Brunswick. Like I've done a little bit of the East Coast. I've never been west. I've never seen mountains. I've never seen Vancouver or Edmonton or Calgary. But by playing this league, like I know these places now, right? So I feel more Canadian by playing in the Canadian Premier League, and I just didn't feel that way before. And even people would ask me when I was in Denmark, like, "Oh, what's these like? Oh, you're from Canada? Like, what's the amount?" I was like, "I only know Toronto, really. Like I don't really know the rest of Canada. I know that it's beautiful. Like I could tell you, okay, Lake Louise is in Alberta, but I couldn't tell you what that looks like. But now being here and making connections and traveling, like I've seen a lot of this beautiful country, and so yeah, I just feel way more Canadian now than I ever did.
Oh, I'd love to hear that too. And I have to say this always because again, you know, Vancouver, don't get me wrong, we have beautiful parts of the country, like you said, the Maritimes, even on the West Coast here. I get so mad when I go to Vancouver because not only is it beautiful scenery, there's no bugs. Like I'm like, how is this fair? Like I'm living in Winnipeg, like it's cold here all the majority of the year, and we get mosquitoes like you wouldn't believe. So it's always when I go there, I'm like, it's just so unfair.
Yeah, it's true. It's a
Yeah.
really beautiful place.
So you then finish your career there in just in general with in soccer with York United, and then you transition over to punditry. I mean, this is
Yeah.
a whole different ball game in terms of like a media and just being able to analyze the game. Like, how did you make that transition over to where you are now?
Well, I said I always wanted to teach, right? I felt like obviously the communication aspect is something that comes to me naturally, whether it's me actually wearing the captain's armband or just being a leader on a team. That was just I love people. So you put people and footy together and you put people, footy, and communication together. I was like, this would be a world I would love. So I honestly want to try it, and I will always be grateful to the people that work at One Soccer, Andy Petrillo, Gareth Wheeler. I can go on a list of everyone that played a part in kind of that transition and looking into that and maybe that introduction into that world because immediately I loved it. Like the first time I had the IFBN and I could hear what people are saying and it's your time to speak and you have to land your plane, see how you feel and show your personality. I loved it right away. So did I think I was gonna retire and get straight into it? No. But did I knew that I wanted to do it once I played? Absolutely. Once I stopped playing? Absolutely. It was a no-brainer for me. And I'm just grateful I got in at the time that I did and that I took the time to learn from people that have made a career out of it. I've done it for over 2 decades. So yeah. It was easy because similar to coming home, it just made sense. Like the worlds collided and it made sense for me to kind of start that.
And that's the one thing too. Like again, you don't see a lot of players, when they finish the pro career, do a lot of punditry afterward. It could be a big change, right? Especially you have to have that sort of charisma for it and that passion, right? And the one thing I've always appreciated you when I've watched your segments is that you bring out that passion, and I can tell that you really care about the game. And that's one thing that really resonates home with me. And even when I talk about with my friends about your clips and highlights and things like that, they always mention that, like your passion for the game and being able to understand the intricacies of how the CPL works. And it's just one thing too that I really wanted to say that you've again keep with that passion, because again it intrigues the audience, intrigues myself as well, and you've really helped, you, Gareth, the whole team there have really brought out the professional credibility of this league in general, in my opinion.
No, I appreciate that, Keith. Thank you so much, man. Sweet of you to say.
Now I have to ask you though. I mean, you played in the league though in the early 2020s, and now we're in 2026. Again,
Yeah,
4 years ago.
I know.
kind of interested to hear playing in that league at that time to where it is now. I mean, you're right around the league all the time. You're always in the know. What growth have you seen in the league since that time?
So a lot. Some big name players. I think the games are more competitive. I think if I was a neutral fan, I guess I kind of am. I'm so like what a league to kind of like bet on, like in terms of like every year you don't know who's. Look at Atletico Ottawa last season. Like you would never suspect that team to be as good as they were. Like you could see that they were maybe geared up to be better, but I think it's just the storylines. Like every year there's something or someone that just surprises me. I think the talent's a lot better. I think you're seeing more guys um having to step up and raise their game. And that's the beautiful part. There's other things we can complain about the Canadian Premier League, but I don't think anyone can say that the product isn't good. Like the games, the talent, the goals, the people that um are there every week. That's the part for me that's kept improving. And yes, I want all 8 competitive teams. And I want all every week 4 games to be interesting and riveting. But that's just not how life works. But I love that there's so much talent. And I love that there's almost even more talent than when I played. So we're trending in the right direction.
And you really got to look at some of the players that that are developing. Like, I mean, Jesse Marsh just called up, several CPL players to the training camp, right? And some of them made their debuts. Like, again, again, Valor was my hometown here, so I went to a lot of Valor games. Like Mateo DeBrit, that was a great moment seeing him make his debut for Canada. I mean, you got like other great players that went there as well, like Noah Atibene as well from Atletico, from Atletico Ottawa, great player. I mean, one player I used to love watching a couple of years ago before he moved to Belgium there was Kwasi Poku. Was such a good player there. And I mean, even if you look at, you look at too in the Canadian Championship, like these CPL teams were competing against some of the, even like MLS teams. Like, for example, like I was at the games last year when Valor took on Vancouver Whitecaps and drew them to draws and things like that. So again, the talent is there and it's just super exciting to see. And I mean, I really wanted to get your insight on this because you were there. And again, this is probably one of the, I want to say one of the brightest moments, I think, just in Canadian soccer in general. That final this year was insane, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was incredible.
And you were there on sideline. I mean, you got to see David Rodriguez, score a goal and then face plant into the snowbank there. Can you just kind of take me around there? Like, that game must have just been incredible to be at. Not a cold one, I assume, but just incredible experience.
It felt surreal. I think there was one part of me as a footballer was like, this game should be rescheduled. But then there's another part of me as an analyst and someone that covers this league is like, everyone was watching. Like that, I felt like the world was watching. And I think as a footballer, that's what you want. You want a spectacle where you can put on the biggest stage. And I think that would just always go down in history as that day of like, where were you? Whether you're at home with a cup of Baileys or coffee or tea getting warm, or like me, I regret the fact that I had a little bit of a fade. Like the back of my neck was like beyond cold. And I had dress shoes on, like I was freezing. But I knew to take everything in and enjoy that day because we would probably never, ever get a game like this. And even fans asked me, Jordan, have you played in the snow before? And I just kept replying saying yes, but never like this. Like there was snow flurries and particles of snow on the ground, or I could still play football. There was a lot on the snowbank. There were also maybe heated stadiums with the grass, so like the snow was melting. This was like pure snow. Second half was honestly unplayable, and these guys are playing some quality football in the midst of all the snow. So it's just something that I don't ever see any game topping. Like I've never seen goals like that. I've never seen guys play that well in the snow. I've never seen a field covered in snow the way that it was. So for such a crazy year, I think it ended in a spectacular way.
Oh, and that's the thing too, right? Like, I mean, I play a lot of like a Football Manager on Twitch and things like that, and a lot of my audience is based in the UK. And then I was in the UK at the time, and all these guys were messaging me like, "Have you seen what's going on in Canada? Is this what you guys play in all the time?" I'm like, "No, no, 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 it's not. We don't play in that type of snow." And then and then what's been dubbed now as the icicle kick.
Yeah.
They just said it was mental, and I think. Jeez, I don't honestly, I don't think that was just. I think a truly special moment in the CPL here, and I when I saw your coverage there, I was like, I wish I was there. It was like,
Yeah,
oh,
crazy.
something
It
that
was
you stay
honestly a
free.
crazy day. It felt surreal.
Oh,
It felt surreal.
now again, that was just something that I wanted to get your take on that because again, just what a moment for the CPL, and just what a moment for Canadian soccer in general. So, it's gonna be super exciting to see how we'll follow up this upcoming year as well. I mean, Supra making its inaugural debut in the season here. This will be a really fun team to watch as well. And I know they've been making some signings. York United also rebranded into Toronto, so that's another. Let's see how that new branding can reinvigorate this team and how they go about the season. As well. I thought like Ottawa. Winning that CPL title has been great for them. I know Ford just had a foothold on the league there for quite some time, so it was great to see Ottawa get their place there as well. But yeah, I just wanted to get your experience there. And I guess my one question here, though, for Supra, what are your expectations kind of going into the season for them? Like, what do you have any insight, or what do you think how they'll do this season?
I think they'll be a competitive team, and that's so vague, but that's all I can give right now and really feel good about it is because of that passion from Quebec. Um, Speaking to Razagi, but also just knowing the players that they're bringing in, they're gonna want to put on for their province, right? And some people are Laval, some people are CSA Laurent, but they're coming under one umbrella. Some people are CF Montreal players. Um, but they're gonna come under one umbrella, and how quickly they can do that is how quickly they'll be successful. I don't see them finishing last by in the slightest. I didn't even see them people being like, "Oh, this is their first year. Like, give them time." Um, I see them being competitive, and where that falls, if that's a fifth place and just making playoffs, or just missing out, or even being third, I see them being a team that people don't want to play. And that off the bat makes them exciting because they haven't kicked the ball yet. So the fact that I could say that with confidence and keep in mind, I also said Valor last year was going to finish third. I really felt like that was a year for Valor. But from all of what I understand and what I'm seeing from Supra, the Quebec, it seems like this is a team that will actually do some damage in the league.
I'm really excited to see. I'm keeping a close eye on them, and yeah, I know we talked about Valor. Obviously, I'm very sad about it, but you know what? That was probably one of the best teams they had. They had one of the best teams that we've had in a while. Like Keelan Froze just joined the team. Romeo Rocco was there as well. Like again, we had some ballers there, and it's just it's sad. I mean, hopefully we can see a team come back here in Winnipeg eventually sometime soon. Hopefully, but yeah, I think sky's the limit for Supra. Honestly.
Definitely, definitely.
Now I do have to ask you: is there any I know I may know be a little bit early, but is there any players that you're kind of thinking that may have a breakout season in the CPL this year?
I mean, the player right now that I was hyping up, I always said if he came back to the league, he would take over. That's Deadine Abzi for Supra. Benny Badabanga is now going to into Toronto with Ollie Bassett. I mean, those two naturally will create a lot of headlines. I want to see what they can create and what they can cook up. Um, there's a bunch. There's always those storylines. I think Calvary with Didic, who they get in the midfield, will be a big thing. Looking at Warshevsky, for me, is probably one of the best strikers the league has ever had. There's storylines for every team. I just hope that with a World Cup year, with the eighth year that the CPL has been in existence. This is gonna be the eighth season. Bring it. Like, don't. I have all the players. Like, just make sure that you're there. Don't start the season. Don't wait 10 games to get it going. Hit the ground running because it makes my job easier. Like, I just love watching quality football. And I hate more than anything commenting about a team that seems apathetic, that they don't care, that they're not locked in. I hate it. So make sure that I don't have to say that. Make sure my job's easy, that I can break down what you're doing great. And maybe you're losing games, but you're giving it all that you have. That's easy for me to break down. But don't come like teams have done in the past. And I'm like, they don't seem like they want to be there. I hate that. This is a blessing to play the game. It should be shown all the time. Shown all the time.
Absolutely, and I think that's it makes your job more enjoyable, right? When there's that passion, that like the team that cares, it just makes your job so much easier there. Now, I do have to ask as well as this one too. Who you think? Who's your favorites to win the league this next year, in your opinion?
It's tough. It's really tough. Based on the fact I just saw today a job report assigned to a second division team in the Netherlands, which is a very good level, and he's a fantastic player. Ford's lost 2 games last year, and people are like they're a different team. They're gonna lose some players, but again, I know that recency bias. People will say, okay, well they're not the same team, but they lost 2 games and they ended up winning the league. Um, so until someone beats them out, I'm gonna put them as favorites again. But this is a turning point for Forge, because people actually feel like they're beatable now, right? They're not immortal. So let's see how things play out this season. But if you had to ask me right now, gun to my head, I'd say Forge.
Oh, I honestly though they've been again that model of success that in since the CPL's inaugural season there. So I do think that they'll have I have to agree with you there. I mean they're always that beacon there, and I do think they'll have a rebound season there where they will ultimately take the league, in my opinion. I agree with you there, Jordan.
Yeah.
So, and then lastly, kind of before we kind of wrap things up here, we're coming up on the World Cup year, just like we talked about. It's finally here, 2026, 4 years in the making. Canada still obviously has to have their groups finalized here. In your opinion, how far does Canada go in this World Cup tournament?
Oh man, I hate this question just because I would like to see them get out the group confidently and play and win that next match once they get to knockout stage. But it has to do with obviously how they start. Like I think success looks like 6 points in the group stage, like a win. Hopefully they don't lose, but 6, 7 points, hopefully 9. But I think Qatar they can deal with. Switzerland will be tough, but I think a team, if they're as good as they say they are, or tactically they're astute on the day, they could maybe beat Switzerland or get a point from them. And then whoever else is there, that'll be their first match. They gotta compete. They gotta win, right? So I just want to see a world where they tie or lose the first game or tie against Qatar, and then they only have 1 point going into the last game, and they make it out of the group, but they're basically hobbling. I think Canada's better than that. So yeah, I think it's exciting, but I'm not gonna lie to you, Keith. It feels like a crossroads for the program because you like a World Cup is every 4 years. You gotta wait another 4 years to see where this team is at and to really um test them against the best. It's tough. It's gonna be tough. So I'm hoping that I'm really like I really believe in the squad and in terms of the talent and how they've played and but again it's tournament football. It's like some countries you play, they always do well, but then maybe for the other 3.5 years, they're just kind of coasting. But when it comes to tournament play, they take off. And I would say Canada just doesn't have that much experience in a World Cup, right? So I'm hoping they could be their best self, but we're just gonna have to wait and see. But that's why the sports is beautiful. That's why you watch, is you just don't really know. Like nothing is guaranteed. No one can say for certain who's gonna win. So that's why you watch and tune in.
Now, Jordan, I just have to say thank you so much for being here on the Observer Football Podcast. Just talk about your journey and the overall this experience here with the CPL in general, and just how you've been doing such a great job in basically elevating the CPL here with the team there. And again, I know you have a lot of other projects kind of going on here. Anything you want to shout out? I think you have Off the Laces social media platform.
I do.
Yeah.
Appreciate you saying that. Yeah, just something that's a passion project that I'm just trying to build up. And I think when it comes to that, I just look back on my career and how grateful I am for the people that kind of paved that way, coaches, parents, everyone, right? Like just I'm always grateful for growing up the way that I did, right? Where we didn't have these iPads in our hands or phones, like we just went and we were playing outside, and just working on a game and dreaming. But yeah, that's kind of like my passion project, my love letter to the game is everything off the laces. It could be funny clips, it could be doing workshops at schools, but I just want to bring the game to life in Canada and make sure that yeah, kids are playing and enjoying themselves, and then we're also documenting it as well. So yeah, if you're not following, please follow Off the Laces XVIII. But yeah, you can obviously find on my YouTube page as well at J Wilson XVIII or Instagram, whatever. We're all linked together. But that's kind of what I want to do for 2026 and beyond. And there's a big World Cup, and then the Women's World Cup next summer is big as well. So there's always footy going on. I think that's the biggest thing is I'm really blessed to do it. So I just want to keep doing it, keep growing the game as much as we can.
Absolutely. And obviously links will be provided to Jordan's social media in the description below. So make sure you go follow him and support everything he does, because not only does he do a great job of just highlighting the game, but you can definitely see the passion here for Canadian soccer. And really, the sky's the limit with the NSL, the CPL, the Canadian women's national team as well. There's just so much here and so much potential. Again, Jordan, thank you so much for joining here today. And again, we'll always love to have you back here on the show. And we'll obviously keep in line with your journey with the upcoming World Cup.